Hi everyone, my name is Megan and I am the community lead at Watch This Space, a diversity and inclusion consultancy. What am I actually here to talk to you about today? Recognising cultural appropriation in your SEO so you can avoid PR problems. But what is cultural appropriation? Cultural appropriation is the act of taking a specific element from a marginalised community and adopting it in a way that doesn't recognise its true value, significance, or origin. It's appreciation. There can be a fine line between appreciation and appropriation, but most of the time when you see this sort of content, it is appropriating from another culture. And this is why it's so important to have diverse teams and have different opinions and perspectives when it comes to creating that content. For example, the word period, this comes from African American vernacular English and also includes words like woke and cis. So if you see a company using words like this in their copy, but they're not a Black-owned brand, then it's not very authentic and they're using another culture for their gain. In 2016, Google faced backlash when you search for professional hairstyles for work versus unprofessional hairstyles for work, and you got a very, very different result. Love Black lives like you love Black culture. Now, this is something that, you can really take this quote and put it against any marginalised community, but find what they're actually discriminated against when adopted by another company or brand or even person. They are celebrated for it, and that's obviously not very fair. But how does this affect individual people? If you can't tell, that's me about 20 years ago. I was very cute, yes. I'm very proud of that missing tooth there. But imagine telling, our younger generation, the future leaders, that all of the things that they are discriminated against and discriminated for when adopted by other people, it's fresh, it's modern, it's edgy, and it's okay. But what happens if your brand culturally appropriates? You're not going to get cancelled. People live in this sort of fear zone that they can't do anything new or try and be more inclusive out of this fear that their business is going to go bust the next day. While you can see a significant drop in revenue, you could see, obviously, probably a lot of social media backlash and PR backlash. These are all very bad things, but your business isn't going to go bust, but it can really affect you. 64% of young people agree that cultural appropriation is a problem, and it's vital for brands to recognise the cultural roots. But it's not just the company that needs to be worried about this, because at the end of the day, there's someone's name that's signed off on all these different campaigns, especially if you're working for a much larger, more corporate company. They'll put out an apology statement and say that the person responsible for this was fired. Take this campaign by PlayStation Portable. When they launched a new colorway in white, they thought it was a really good idea to have a white person in white clothing holding by the face a Black person in Black clothing, which is obviously highly, highly inappropriate and very offensive to a lot of people. But how does this actually relate to SEO? What are some ways that all of these problems in cultural appropriation can manifest itself into your marketing? Inauthentic keywords. Have you ever been guilty of using a keyword that perhaps doesn't 100% align with your client or company? And perhaps you've used a keyword that relates to a culture with no cultural context or understanding of how that comes into it. So take this for an example. We've got a UK fashion brand here, and they are using this massive historical event of Chinese New Year to basically try and drum up some sales. It's exploitative, it's disrespectful, and they're using it for commercial gain, and they've got no acknowledgement for the event, and they're not close to that community. We also have naming conventions, so this could be products or campaigns that are named after cultural terms or phrases without recognizing the true meaning or context. So in this example, the indigenous cultures of the Andes Mountains, the word mystic holds some really sacred and spiritual connotations, and the Andes themselves have deep cultural significance. So using this name with no understanding, the company is essentially appropriating that culture and they're commodifying it to try and drive sales up for this campaign. So they're trying to sound appealing, but it's actually very culturally insensitive. Leading into language insensitivity, I touched a little bit on this earlier. So using phrases or idioms from a culture. So samurai, this carries historical cultural context, and samurai actually means honor, discipline, and dignity. But here it's just been reduced to a catchphrase for a language learning app. So all you're achieving is offending a very, very large audience and alienating a whole community as well. Insensitive storytelling. So this essentially looks like romanticizing a culture and putting them down to marketing tools rather than respecting and acknowledging the culture for what they are. I'm sure we've all seen an advert like this. I can think of 3 of a lady walking through a rainforest and she finds some magical treatment that takes 10 years off of her face. But this concept is really using people as local props, and they exist for the sole purpose to serve this beauty traveler's revelation. And again, it's romanticizing that culture and ignoring all the complexities that come with it. And in an attempt to have an engaging story, they're just offending a lot of people and being very culturally insensitive. So using cultural stereotypes to categorize or classify products or services, a lot of the time this can actually reinforce harmful bias. So in this example, our specialist, they've been given a brief to sort some categories of foods. What they've done is they're stereotyping African cuisine, diverse African cuisines, under one label and then calling it exotic. So again, this is reinforcing those harmful biases by simplifying and generalizing a whole host of culinary traditions. And it suggests that African foods are foreign, exotic, and they're interchangeable rather than respecting their true origin. And then jumping on cultural trends or movements without properly acknowledging their background. So this really comes across as being opportunistic and not authentic. So here we've got someone using a cultural trend with no context, and they're latching onto a viral dance trend without taking time to appreciate the cultural role of salsa and the heritage it has within its community. So again, by using this campaign and using this term, it's opportunistic and it's used for commercial gain without acknowledging the true origin. So what's the best way that you can identify these problematic practices when it comes to your marketing? Research is probably the most important thing, and we all do it every day anyway. So before using any cultural elements within your marketing, thoroughly research and understand the cultural context. Ensure any use of cultural symbols or languages or themes is done with the utmost respect. Consult the experts. When in doubt, consult with cultural experts or people who are from the communities that you are trying to engage with. They can give you valuable insights and guidance and ensure that your work is culturally sensitive. And it's important that you cultivate long-term relationships so they can feed this into your ongoing strategies. Be cautious of using stereotypes or caricatures, as they can perpetuate harmful biases and offend a lot of audiences. That could actually be your target audience or your customers. So ensure that your content is portraying cultures respectfully. If you are considering a cultural trend, then take the time to understand its significance and avoid using them opportunistically without acknowledging any of their cultural roots. Be mindful of any languages you're using, any idioms or phrases, because you don't want to use these terms from a culture's language without understanding any of the true implications. Ensure that your choice of keywords are accurate and they are relevant to you, and avoid any that could be misleading or unrelated to your content. Regularly audit your content and your campaigns to ensure that they are ethical and they align with your brand and your values as well. And you can always remove or revise any problematic content. It's not out there forever. Seek feedback from diverse colleagues or focus groups before launching a campaign, as their insights can help you identify potential issues that you could have missed and also see other perspectives. Probably most importantly, if a mistake is made, and they do happen, we see it a lot of the time, acknowledge it, and if necessary, take any corrective actions to mitigate any PR fallout. But at the end of the day, we are all human and we all make mistakes. We see a lot of them here, and you'll see a lot of them in your day-to-day at work as well. So how can you actually incorporate diversity and inclusion into your SEO strategies? Gain insights into your target audience demographics and understand their interests and their cultural background. You can also identify the diverse groups within your audience and their unique preferences as well. As I said, use inclusive keywords that reflect the different perspectives that match your audience, and avoid language that could exclude or alienate certain groups as well. Create content that resonates with your audience by addressing their specific needs and interests, and highlight stories, experiences, and case studies from different culturally relevant backgrounds. Use diverse and representative visuals that reflect the demographics of your audience, but avoid tokenism by featuring a vast array of people from different ethnicities, genders, and abilities within your imagery. Adopt an inclusive and respectful tone in all of your content. Be aware of the impact of the language on different cultural groups, and try to avoid any potentially offensive terminology. Ensure that your website, and not only your website, but your content as well, is accessible to people who may have disabilities. So implement alt text for images, use appropriate heading structures, provide videos, provide captions for your videos, that sort of thing. Collaborate with diverse influencers and websites to build a more inclusive backlink profile, so you can seek partnerships that also align with your diversity and inclusion values. And then optimize for local searches by highlighting diverse local experiences and feature diverse communities and their contributions within your content. And then you can also provide or ask for training on diversity and inclusion, not only within SEO, not only within digital marketing, but in all aspects within your company. And you can stay informed about evolving best practices and cultural sensitivities. And then use analytics to track the performance of your diverse and inclusive content, monitor for engagement rates, conversion rates, and feedback. And you can use all of this to assess the impact of all of your efforts. But how do you actually measure all of that? So establish specific diversity and inclusion goals. So that could be increasing your diverse audience engagement, improving your inclusive keyword usage, or boosting your representation in visuals. Use analysis tools to track your metrics. Analyze the data. Are there any changes in user behavior? Are there any changes in user engagement? And assess the performance of specific diversity and inclusion content. You can also track your keyword performance. Analyze if your diversity and inclusion efforts are impacting your rates. Are they impacting your sales? Are they impacting the visits to your website? Whatever events that you're tracking, you can analyze all of that specific to this content and ensure that your backlinks are coming from a variety of sources. Based on that analysis, you can then make adjustments and continuously improve your approach for that inclusivity and engagement. So to summarize all of that, understand the content that you are creating, respect other people and their cultures, work with an expert, and be authentic to your brand. But most importantly, be mindful, because as I said, at the end of the day, we can all make mistakes, but the most important thing is the intention. If your intention is good and it's there, if you do mess up, your communities and your audience, they will understand. 64% of people claim they are more likely to trust companies that showcase diversity within their marketing. 64%. Thank you very much.